Mars has always been this silent red enigma hanging in our night sky, a world so close yet so alien, whispering secrets just beyond our reach. For centuries, we've stared up at it, weaving myths and dreams about what might lie there. But now, thanks to rovers, orbiters, and cutting-edge technology, we're peeling back those layers of mystery, and what we've found is stranger than anything we could have imagined. From bizarre formations that look eerily out of place to objects that defy logic, Mars is serving up one cosmic puzzle after another. And today, we're diving deep into 30 of the most jaw-dropping, spine-tingling discoveries ever made on its rust-colored surface. Picture this, a landscape frozen in time, where the wind carves shapes that play tricks on your eyes, where shadows stretch into unnatural forms, and where every rock seems to hide a story. Some of these findings have scientists scratching their heads, debating whether they're tricks of light and erosion or something more. Others are so uncanny, they've sparked theories we can't ignore. Have we stumbled upon remnants of an ancient civilization? Or is Mars just messing with us, crafting illusions out of dust and rock? One thing's for sure, these discoveries blur the line between natural wonder and something far more mysterious. This isn't just a tour of oddities, it's a journey into the unknown, where every crater and dune holds the potential to rewrite what we know about the red planet. Some of these objects look like they were dropped there by accident, others seem almost intentional. And as we explore each one, you'll start to see Mars not just as a barren wasteland, but as a place teeming with unanswered questions. So buckle up, by the end of this, you might just find yourself staring at the night sky a little differently, wondering what else is out there waiting to be found. The first mystery that put Mars conspiracy theories into overdrive wasn't some shadowy crater or strange rock. It was a face staring back at us from the rust-colored desert. In 1976, NASA Viking 1 orbiter captured an image of the Cydonia region that sent shockwaves through the world. There, etched into the Martian surface, was what looked unmistakably like a human face, complete with symmetrical eyes, a nose, and even what appeared to be a mouth frozen in an eerie, stoic expression. The photo ignited imaginations overnight. Was this a colossal statue, some ancient monument left behind by a lost civilization, or just a trick of light and shadow on a weathered mesa? Scientists initially dismissed it as a quirk of pareidolia, that human instinct to see familiar shapes in random patterns, like faces in clouds or animals in rock formations. But the public wasn't so easily convinced. Books were written, documentaries filmed, and theories spun about a buried Martian city, with a face acting as some kind of alien sphinx guarding its secrets. The myth only grew when later analysis suggested unnatural symmetry, angles, and proportions that seemed too precise for mere geology. For decades, it became the ultimate what-if of space exploration. Then, in the late 1990s and early 2000s, new spacecraft with sharper cameras flew over Cydonia. The results, the face crumbled literally. High-resolution images revealed a rugged, uneven hill, battered by millennia of wind and erosion. What once looked like deliberate craftsmanship now appeared clearly natural, just another Martian mesa with shadows casting temporary illusions. Yet even today, some refuse to let the mystery die, arguing later images were airbrushed or altered to hide the truth. Whether you see it as a cosmic prank or a suppressed revelation, one thing's certain: the face on Mars taught us how easily our minds can turn barren landscapes into stories, and how Mars excels at feeding our hunger for the unknown. Just when we thought Mars had run out of ways to surprise us, the red planet dropped another head-scratcher right in front of NASA Opportunity rover, a rock that looked like it had no business being there. In January 2014, mission controllers were reviewing routine images when they spotted something bizarre. A small, smooth, white rock shaped like a jelly donut perfectly perched on the Martian soil. The strangest part, it hadn't been there 12 days earlier. One moment the patch of ground was empty. The next, this pale, almost glowing object appeared out of nowhere, as if someone or something had placed it there. Scientists nicknamed it Pinnacle Island, but the internet quickly dubbed it the Jelly Doughnut rock for its uncanny resemblance to the sugary treat. Its texture was unlike anything else in the area, smooth, lightly speckled, and startlingly bright against the rusty landscape. Initial analysis suggested it was rich in sulfur, magnesium, and manganese, elements that made it stand out dramatically from its surroundings. But how did it get there? A leading theory was that Opportunity's wheels kicked it up while maneuvering, flipping it from beneath the soil into view. Others speculated it might be debris from a nearby meteorite impact, flung onto the rover's path by cosmic chance, but neither explanation fully satisfied the public's curiosity. The rock's sudden appearance and odd composition fueled wilder theories. Could it be some form of Martian fungus, a hardened droplet of liquid, or even evidence of geological activity pushing ancient material to the surface? What made Pinnacle Island so fascinating wasn't just its mystery, but what it revealed about Mars itself. This wasn't a static, dead world. It was dynamic, capable of rearranging its own landscape in ways we didn't always anticipate. Whether nudged by wind, wheels, or some unseen force, the Jelly Doughnut rock reminded us that Mars still holds surprises, waiting to trip up our assumptions. And for a brief moment, it turned a routine mission update into a global guessing game, proving that even after a decade of exploration, the red planet still knows how to keep us guessing. Moving from mysterious rocks to tiny cosmic curiosities, the Martian surface revealed another geological oddity that had scientists scrambling for explanations, nicknamed blueberries. These tiny, spherical formations littered the landscape like nature's own ball bearings. When NASA Opportunity rover rolled into Eagle Crater in 2004, its cameras captured thousands of these peculiar little orbs, no larger than BB pellets, scattered across the soil and embedded in rocks. Their smooth, rounded shapes were so uniform, so out of place against the jagged terrain, that they seemed almost manufactured. But these weren't alien artifacts, they were hematite concretions, formed through a process that instantly rewrote our understanding of Mars' past. Hematite, an iron-rich mineral, typically forms in the presence of water. On Earth, we see similar nodules in places like Utah's Navajo sandstone or the rocky deserts of Australia, where groundwater once trickled through porous rock, depositing minerals layer by layer over eons. The Martian blueberries told a strikingly similar story. They were ancient time capsules, proof that liquid water once pooled and flowed across this now barren world. What made them extraordinary wasn't just their existence, but their sheer abundance. Opportunity found them everywhere, clustered like beads on a necklace inside rocks, spilled across dunes, even eroding out of cliffs like berries from a cosmic bush. Their prevalence hinted at a wetter, warmer Mars, where water lingered long enough to shape the planet's very geology. Scientists traced their origins back billions of years to a time when groundwater saturated the soil, dissolving iron and redepositing it in these perfect little spheres. Yet for all their familiarity, the blueberries held Martian quirks. Some were denser than their Earth counterparts, their iron content unusually high. Others sat in patterns that suggested wind or water had redistributed them long after formation, like marbles scattered by a child's hand. And then there were the newberries, smaller, younger versions found later in the mission, proving that Mars' water story might have had more chapters than we thought. These unassuming orbs became one of the clearest signs that Mars wasn't always the arid wasteland we see today. They whispered of ancient springs, of groundwater seeping through red sands, of a world that might have been hospitable to life. And while they didn't spark wild conspiracy theories like the face on Mars or the Jelly Doughnut rock, their quiet significance was far more profound. In their perfect miniature geometry, the blueberries held a truth even stranger than fiction. Mars once was almost Earth-like, and if water was there, for how long, and in what forms, remains one of the biggest questions we're still trying to answer. If Mars has a dark twin, it might just be the Medusae Fossae region, a sprawling, eerie landscape that looks like something straight out of a dragon's nightmare. Stretching over 5,000 kilometers near the planet's equator, this area is covered in undulating, scale-like ridges that give the ground a reptilian texture, as if the skin of some colossal beast were fossilized into the rock. When high-resolution images from orbiters first revealed these formations, they didn't just puzzle scientists, they set the internet ablaze with speculation. Were these the ruins of an ancient alien megastructure, the remnants of a cosmic serpent's lair, or just another one of Mars' wayward geological pranks? The truth, as always, lies somewhere between the mundane and the extraordinary. Researchers studying the region have two leading theories for these dragon scales, and both paint a vivid picture of Mars' violent past. The first points to volcanic ash, not just any ash, but towering pyroclastic flows that once rained down in thick, searing waves. Over time, these deposits could have hardened into fragile, layered rock, only to be sculpted by relentless Martian winds into those sinuous ridges. The second theory suggests wind erosion alone did the job, sandblasting ancient sediment into crests and troughs so precise, they mimic the armor plating of a mythical beast. But here's where it gets even weirder. Medusae Fossae isn't just about looks. Radar data reveals the region's material is unusually porous, so lightweight, in fact, that some scientists argue it might be the largest single deposit of volcanic ash in the solar system. Others speculate it could hide vast reservoirs of ice beneath its arid surface, locked away like a frozen relic of Mars' wetter days. And then there's the sheer scale of the erosion. These ridges aren't small, some stretch for kilometers. Their curves so uniform, it's hard to shake the feeling they were designed. That uncanny precision is what fuels the wilder theories. Online forums lit up with comparisons to everything from buried cities to the fossilized remains of titanic organisms, while more sober analyzers noted how easily human brains impose order on chaos. Yet even the most skeptical scientists admit Medusae Fossae is a geological oddball. No terrestrial landscape matches its bizarre texture exactly, and its formation likely required conditions unique to Mars, a cocktail of thin air, relentless wind, and materials we're still struggling to classify. What makes this region so captivating isn't just its mystery, but what it represents, a reminder that Mars doesn't need aliens to be alien. Its natural processes can create formations so strange they blur the line between geology and art. Whether carved by fire or wind, the dragon scales of Medusae Fossae stand as one of the red planet's most haunting landscapes, a place where reality feels just a step away from myth. Of all the strange formations on Mars, few have sparked as much instant fascination as the so-called doorway captured by NASA, a Curiosity rover in May 2022. Nestled within the layered cliffs of Mount Sharp, this rectangular crevice stood out like a deliberate entryway, its edges unnaturally straight, its shadowed interior suggesting a passage into the unknown. At first glance, it looked like something carved by intelligence, not chance. Social media erupted with theories. Was this proof of subterranean Martian cities? An ancient tomb, or perhaps a backdoor left ajar by some long-gone civilization? Geologists, however, saw something far more familiar, though no less intriguing. The door is likely a textbook example of a stress fracture, a common geological feature formed when layers of rock buckle under pressure. On Earth, we see similar cracks in everything from canyon walls to highway road cuts, where uneven stresses cause rock to split along clean, angular lines. Mars, with its lack of tectonic activity, relies more on erosion and the slow settling of sedimentary layers to create these fractures. Wind and temperature swings then sharpen the edges over millennia, sculpting what might start as an irregular crack into something eerily precise. What made this particular fracture stand out wasn't just its shape, but the perspective. Curiosity's camera caught it head-on, flattening the scene in a way that exaggerated its symmetry. Telephoto lens distortion played a role too, compressing the background and making the crevice appear taller and more door-like than it really was. Follow-up images revealed the truth: a small, shallow alcove no deeper than a few feet, nestled among countless other fractures in the cliff face. The doorway was just one of many. Its neighbors simply didn't line up as photogenically. Yet even with these explanations, the formation holds real scientific value. Stress fractures like these are time capsules, revealing how the Martian crust has shifted and settled over billions of years. Their orientations can hint at ancient seismic activity or the direction of long-vanished water flows. And while they may not be alien architecture, they're proof that Mars has its own kind of craftsmanship, one shaped by gravity, wind, and time. The doorway's legacy, though, isn't just about geology. It's a case study in how easily the human mind projects meaning onto randomness. Our brains are wired to seek patterns, especially ones that resemble human-made structures. It's why we see faces in clouds or pyramids in blurry satellite images. Mars, with its stark landscapes and play of light, is the ultimate canvas for these illusions. And while the door may be a trick of geology and perspective, it's also a reminder of why we explore, to chase the shadows of possibility, even when the answers turn out to be beautifully ordinary. Amid the endless dust and rubble of Mars' Gale crater, one rock gleamed like a misplaced treasure, a tiny, reflective speck nicknamed Little Colonsay by NASA's Curiosity team. When the rover's cameras caught it in late 2018, the rock stood out like a fleck of gold in a sea of rust, its surface oddly polished compared to the dull, weathered stones around it. For scientists, it was an instant mystery. Was this a fragment of a Martian meteorite, a shard of volcanic glass forged in ancient fire, or something even more unexpected? What made Little Colonsay so intriguing wasn't just its shine, but its isolation. Most metallic-looking rocks on Mars turn out to be iron-nickel meteorites, space debris that survived the plunge through the planet's thin atmosphere. But this one seemed different. Initial laser scans suggested a composition rich in silica, hinting at origins closer to home. One theory pointed to obsidian-like volcanic glass, formed when molten rock cools too quickly for crystals to grow, leaving behind a smooth, reflective surface. On Earth, such glass is often found near volcanic vents or impact sites, where extreme heat and rapid cooling collide. If Mars had similar processes, Little Colonsay could be a rare window into its explosive past. Then there's the puzzle of its sheen. Mars' atmosphere lacks the oxygen and moisture that tarnish metals on Earth, so any metallic surface could stay unnaturally bright for eons. But wind erosion should have scoured it dull unless the rock had only recently been exposed, tumbled free from ancient sediment by a chance landslide or rover tracks. Curiosity's team planned to zap it with a chem-cam laser for a clearer read on its chemistry, but the rock proved elusive, perched just out of reach of the rover's instruments. That only fueled speculation. Could it be a fragment of some larger, undiscovered metallic vein, a relic of Mars' volcanic heyday? The irony of Little Colonsay is how something so small can loom so large in our imagination. It's not just a rock. It's a messenger from two possible Martians, one forged in the fires of space, the other in the planet's own turbulent youth. Either answer would be scientifically thrilling. A meteorite would hint at the bombardment Mars endured over billions of years, while volcanic glass could trace forgotten eruptions that once reshaped its surface. And then there's the unspoken question: could its shine come from something rarer, like native metal, or even, dare we say it, a manufactured fragment? The truth, as always, is probably simpler. But in that simplicity lies a deeper lesson. Mars doesn't need to be exotic to astonish us. Sometimes a single glint in the dust is enough to remind us how much we still don't know. Of all the illusions Mars has conjured for our rovers, few have been as hauntingly human as the so-called stick figure shadow caught by Spirit in 2008. In the fading light of a Martian sunset, the rover's cameras captured a bizarre, elongated silhouette stretching across the soil, a shadow with spindly limbs and a distinct head, eerily reminiscent of a person frozen mid-stride. It didn't take long for the image to go viral, with some declaring it proof of Martian life, while others half-jokingly wondered if Spirit had stumbled upon a lone wanderer in the dusty plains of Gusev crater. The truth, of course, lies in the interplay of light and geology, a phenomenon as old as humanity's tendency to see ourselves in the world around us. This particular illusion is a textbook case of pareidolia, the brain's knack for spotting familiar shapes in random patterns. We're wired to recognize faces and figures, a survival trait that helped our ancestors pick out predators in dense foliage or read emotions in dim firelight. On Mars, where the landscape is a canvas of jagged rocks and shifting shadows, that same instinct runs wild. The stick figure wasn't a living creature or even a statue, just a rock, likely no taller than a coffee mug, casting a distorted shadow thanks to the sun's low angle. What made this moment so uncanny was the perfect storm of conditions. Spirit's camera happened to snap the shot when the sun hovered just above the horizon, stretching the rock's silhouette into something unnervingly humanoid. The Martian atmosphere, thinner than Earth's, scatters light differently, sharpening contrasts and deepening shadows, and the rock itself, though mundane in daylight, had just the right irregularities to mimic limbs when backlit. It's the same trick that turns gnarled branches into witches' fingers or mountain ridges into sleeping giants, only this time it played out on another planet. Scientists quickly pinpointed the actual rock responsible, a jagged fragment of basalt or volcanic debris no more remarkable than any other stone Spirit had rolled past. But the stick figure's legacy endures as a masterclass in how context shapes perception. Had the image been taken at high noon, the shadow would have been a compact blotch, utterly unremarkable. But at sunset, on an alien world, it became something more, a fleeting mirage of companionship in the void. This illusion also underscores a deeper truth about Martian exploration. Every rover's camera is, in a way, a mirror. The faces, figures, and phantom doorways we discover say less about Mars and more about us, our hopes, our fears, and our unshakable drive to find meaning in the unknown. The stick figure wasn't a sign of life, but it was a reminder of why we search. Even in the most desolate corners of the cosmos, the human imagination refuses to be alone. Mars has a knack for playing tricks on our eyes, but few illusions have been as delightfully absurd as the so-called Mars rat. In September 2013, as NASA Curiosity rover beamed back images from the rocky slopes of Mount Sharp, eagle-eyed viewers spotted something peculiar nestled among the stones. A small, dark object with what appeared to be a pointed snout, rounded ears, and even tiny paws. The resemblance to a rodent was uncanny. Suddenly, the internet lit up with theories. Had Curiosity stumbled upon a lone Martian survivor, a spacefaring cousin of Earth's mice, or was this just the latest chapter in Mars' long history of optical pranks? The rat, of course, was nothing more than a wind-sculpted rock, a masterclass in how light, shadow, and imagination can conspire to create life where none exists. Geologists pointed out its telltale signs, the same erosion patterns seen in countless other Martian boulders, just arranged in a way that happened to mimic terrestrial fauna. But what made this particular rock so irresistible was its posture. Perched slightly askew on a larger stone, it seemed frozen mid-movement, as if caught scurrying between Martian burrows. The illusion was so convincing that even skeptics had to squint to see it as mere geology. Online, the Mars rat became an instant celebrity. memes proliferated, photoshopping the creature into everything from classic laboratory cages to sci-fi movie posters. Some jokingly demanded NASA send a cheese payload on the next mission, while others half-seriously speculated about subterranean ecosystems where such rodents might thrive. The humor masked a deeper truth. After years of robotic exploration, we still can't help but project Earth's familiar forms onto Mars' alien canvas. Whether it's faces, doorways, or furry interplanetary hitchhikers, our brains insist on finding kinship in the unknown. Scientists took the rat in stride, using it as a teachable moment about pareidolia, the same phenomenon behind the face on Mars and countless earthly illusions, from the man in the moon to Jesus on a piece of toast. But Curiosity's team also acknowledged the rock's unusual texture. Unlike the surrounding debris, it was smoother, darker, possibly volcanic in origin. Wind had likely sandblasted it into that distinctive shape over millennia, a slow-motion artistry unique to Mars' thin atmosphere. In that sense, the rat was a tiny marvel, proof of how patiently the red planet sculpts its own curiosities. The Mars rat endures as one of the mission's most beloved oddities precisely because it's so harmless. There's no conspiracy to unravel, no paradigm to shift, just a rock that, for one fleeting moment, made millions of people imagine a whiskered face peering back from another world. And in doing so, it revealed something wonderfully human about exploration. Even as we send machines to dissect Martian soil and analyze ancient air, part of us still hopes to find not just water or microbes, but neighbors. The universe may be indifferent to our longing, but every now and then it humors us with a cosmic inside joke, like a rat-shaped rock on a planet where nothing, not even a mouse, should be. Among the countless rocks littering Mars' surface, one stood out so bizarrely that it seemed to defy physics itself: the infamous floating spoon. Captured by NASA Curiosity rover in 2015, this delicate, spoon-shaped formation appeared to hover above the ground, suspended by nothing but thin air. The image sparked instant fascination. Was this some ancient Martian utensil left behind? A surreal art installation crafted by wind and time? The truth, as always, was a mesmerizing blend of geology and illusion. What made the spoon so striking was its impossible posture. The handle connected to a larger rock at just one tiny point, while the bowl-like end jutted outward, casting a shadow that made it look weightless. In reality, the spoon wasn't floating at all. It was a fragile outcrop of harder rock that had resisted erosion while softer material around it wore away. Mars' relentless winds, though thin, act like a sculptor's tools over millennia, sandblasting surfaces with precision. This spoon was essentially nature's leftovers, a testament to the planet's patience in carving its own curiosities. The physics behind its balance is equally fascinating. Unlike Earth's denser atmosphere, Mars' thin air allows for finer, more delicate formations to survive without collapsing. The spoon's structure likely contained just enough iron or other resilient minerals to maintain its shape, while the rock beneath it crumbled unevenly. Similar formations exist on Earth. Think of Utah's gravity-defying balanced rocks, but Mars' lower gravity and lack of moisture let these structures reach even more precarious extremes. Yet what truly sets the spoon apart is its rarity. Most wind-sculpted rocks on Mars break long before achieving such an elegant form. For this one to endure, it needed the perfect storm: uniform erosion, optimal mineral composition, and sheer luck. Some scientists speculate it might not last much longer. A single strong dust storm or micrometeorite impact could snap it like a twig. That fleeting nature makes it a cosmic snapshot, a reminder of how temporary even the strangest Martian wonders can be. In the end, the floating spoon isn't just a geological quirk. It's a lesson in perspective. From one angle, it's a mundane rock; from another, a masterpiece of natural engineering. And for a brief moment, it turned Mars into a diner with only one guest: Curiosity, the rover that caught it mid-meal. forever suspended between discovery and disbelief. Amid the dusty monotony of Mars' Gale crater, Curiosity's cameras once spotted something that stopped scientists in their tracks, a delicate, flower-like structure no larger than a penny, clinging to the rust-colored rocks like a lone blossom in a wasteland. When the image hit Earth in February 2022, the internet erupted. Had we finally found life, a fossilized Martian daisy? The truth, as always, was more fascinating than fiction. This wasn't biology, it was geology at its most exquisite, a tiny masterpiece sculpted by minerals and time. Close-up images revealed the flower as a cluster of crystalline deposits, likely formed when water rich in minerals seeped through porous rock billions of years ago. As the liquid evaporated, it left behind intricate structures similar to how stalactites grow in Earth's caves, but on a microscopic scale. The petals weren't petals at all, but delicate ridges of gypsum or another sulfate mineral, their branching patterns a record of the fluid's path. What made this formation extraordinary was its preservation. Mars' thin atmosphere and lack of liquid water mean such fragile features usually crumble to dust, yet here was one that had survived eons of punishing winds. Scientists call these formations diagenetic crystals, and they're more than just pretty accidents. Their shapes and chemistry act as tiny time capsules, locking in clues about Mars' ancient groundwater. The way the petals curve hints at the flow direction of long-vanished streams, while their mineral content suggests the water was briny, a detail that could narrow down where life might have once thrived. On Earth, similar structures form around hydrothermal vents, often teeming with bacteria. While that doesn't mean Mars' flower hosted life, it does spotlight the kind of environments worth scrutinizing for fossilized microbes. The real magic lies in the contrast. This ethereal little structure emerged from the same forces that carved Mars' grandest canyons: water, chemistry, and unimaginable stretches of time. Yet where those landscapes overwhelm with scale, the flower captivates with intricacy. It's a reminder that Mars' secrets aren't just hidden in sweeping vistas, but in the quiet corners where patience and precision reveal artistry we're only beginning to understand. And for a planet so often labeled dead, that's a revelation as delicate as the flower itself. Proof that beauty, even here, finds a way. Mars isn't known for its sense of humor, but when opportunity rolled up to a near-perfect sphere resting in the dust, it was hard not to imagine the red planet casually lobbing a cosmic cannonball at us. This wasn't just any rock, it was eerily round, almost polished, like something you'd skip across a pond or find tucked in the barrel of an ancient pirate ship. Dubbed the Mars Cannonball, this peculiar find wasn't just a curiosity. It was a geological time machine offering clues about Mars' watery past that scientists are still unpacking today. What makes this spherical rock so fascinating isn't just its shape, but how it got there. On Earth, we see similar formations in riverbeds and ocean shores, where pebbles tumble and roll for centuries, worn smooth by relentless currents. The Martian version likely formed the same way, only instead of a rushing river. Imagine shallow lakes or even floodplains billions of years ago, where water sloshed and swirled, patiently rounding jagged stones into orbs. Opportunity's cannonball was essentially a fossilized raindrop of history, proof that Mars once had enough liquid to play nature's lapidary artist. But here's where Mars throws us a curveball. On Earth, such perfect spheres are rare outside of water-heavy environments, but the cannonball sat in Meridiani Planum, a region now drier than Earth's most parched deserts. This paradox forced scientists to reconsider how long water persisted on Mars and how dynamic its ancient hydrology might have been. Some theorize the sphere could be a concretion, a mineral nodule formed when groundwater percolated through sediment, gluing particles together layer by layer before erosion exposed it. Others suggest it might be a Martian version of a Moqui marble, those iron-rich balls found in Utah's deserts, where wind and chemical reactions mimic water's smoothing effects over eons. The cannonball's composition added another twist. Initial scans suggested it was rich in hematite, the same iron oxide that forms those famous blueberries Opportunity found earlier. Yet while the blueberries were tiny and abundant, this sphere was singular and striking, a lone sentinel of a bygone era. Its isolation raised questions. Was it part of a larger group since scattered by wind or impacts? Or did it form under unique conditions, a fluke of chemistry and time? What's undeniable is how this unassuming rock bridges Mars and Earth. From the river-rounded stones of Iceland's black sand beaches to the wave-polished pebbles of Lake Michigan, we see the same forces at work, just on a planet where those forces vanished millennia ago. The cannonball is a reminder that Mars' mysteries aren't always about the bizarre, but the familiar made alien by context. It's a stone that wouldn't look out of place in your pocket, yet it carries the weight of a world we're only beginning to understand. And in its perfect curves, we catch a glimpse of a Mars that wasn't just habitable, but maybe even hospitable. A place where water didn't just exist, but flowed with the patience to shape the land one pebble at a time. Among the baffling formations dotting Mars' surface, few have sparked such immediate culinary comparisons as the so-called Mars waffle. When NASA Curiosity rover beamed back images of this peculiar rock in 2014, the internet lit up with jokes about interplanetary breakfasts because there, etched into the Martian dust, was what looked uncannily like a perfectly gridded waffle. The rock's surface was divided into near-identical rectangular depressions, their edges so precise they seemed almost machined. Was this some long-lost Martian cookware? A geological prank played by the cosmos? The truth lies in one of nature's most reliable artists, cooling lava. On Earth, we see similar patterns in places like the Giant's Causeway in Northern Ireland or California's Devil's Postpile, where molten rock contracts as it solidifies, fracturing into geometric cracks. These fractures often form polygons, usually hexagons, but sometimes squares or rectangles as the material splits along lines of least resistance. On Mars, where ancient volcanic activity was widespread, the same process likely created this waffle-like texture. As lava flows spread and cooled billions of years ago, tension built up in the hardening crust, causing it to fracture into these eerily uniform grids. But why does the Mars waffle look so unnervingly precise? The answer lies in scale and erosion. The rock's surface has been sandblasted by wind for eons, wearing down the cracks into those deep, clean grooves. What might have started as hairline fractures have widened over time, accentuating the pattern. The same phenomenon happens in deserts on Earth, where softer rock erodes faster than harder veins, leaving behind dramatic ridges and troughs. On Mars, with its thinner atmosphere and relentless winds, the effect is even more pronounced, turning what could have been a subtle crack network into a breakfast-worthy spectacle. Of course, no discussion of the waffle would be complete without addressing the elephant in the room, the persistent theory that it's artificial. The grid's regularity does tempt the imagination, and it's easy to see why some viewers leaped to the idea of manufactured design. Yet scientists point out that nature excels at creating order from chaos. From beehives to basalt columns, symmetry is everywhere in geology, no intelligence required. In fact, the waffle's cracks aren't even perfectly uniform when measured closely. Their slight variations in spacing and depth betray their natural origins, a fingerprint of the chaotic processes that shaped them. What makes this formation truly special isn't just its looks, but what it reveals about Mars' volcanic past. The waffle is a snapshot of a time when lava flowed across the planet's surface, shaping its skin in ways we're only beginning to decode. The size and depth of the cracks can even hint at the cooling rate of those ancient flows, whether they hardened quickly in Mars' frigid air or slowly beneath insulating layers of dust. And while it may not be proof of extraterrestrial brunch enthusiasts, it's a delicious reminder that nature's creativity knows no bounds. Even on a dead world millions of miles away, the universe finds ways to surprise us one grid at a time. Just when we thought Mars had exhausted its repertoire of edible-looking rocks, opportunity delivered another head-turning find. This time, a perfect ring-shaped stone that could pass for a cosmic donut. Unlike the infamous Jelly Doughnut rock that appeared mysteriously, this formation, spotted in 2014, was more like a celestial bagel, a dark, circular band with a hollow center resting undisturbed on the Martian soil. The internet promptly dubbed it the Mars Doughnut, but this wasn't just another case of pareidolia. It was a masterclass in geological erosion, revealing how wind and time sculpt Mars' strangest shapes. What set this doughnut apart was its textbook perfect formation. Unlike the Jelly Doughnut's sudden appearance, this ring was clearly a product of patient natural forces. Scientists determined it was likely a harder rock that once encased softer material inside. Over eons, relentless Martian winds sandblasted the center, wearing away the weaker substance until only the tough outer rim remained, like nature's own lapidary artist carving a stone donut from solid rock. This process, called differential erosion, is common in deserts on Earth, where wind or water exploits variations in rock hardness to create arches, pillars, and pitted formations. On Mars, with its thinner atmosphere and persistent dust storms, the effect is amplified, allowing for unusually delicate structures to survive. The doughnut's dark color hinted at another clue: its composition. Unlike the pale, sulfur-rich Jelly Doughnut, this ring appeared to be basalt, a volcanic rock common on Mars. Its smooth, rounded edges suggested it had tumbled or rolled at some point, further polished by abrasive winds. But the real marvel was its fragility, how such a thin, uninterrupted circle could endure in an environment where dust storms rage and temperature swings fracture stone. It spoke to Mars' ability to preserve delicate formations in its low-gravity, low-atmosphere conditions, where Earth-like weathering is less destructive to intricate shapes. While the Jelly Doughnut sparked wild speculation about movement and mystery, the ring-shaped rock grounded us back in Mars' geological reality. It wasn't a fleeting oddity, but a slow-motion artwork crafted by wind over millennia. Its presence in Meridiani Planum, a region rich in hematite and ancient sedimentary layers, added another piece to the puzzle of Mars' watery past. Some researchers even proposed that the hollow center might once have held mineral deposits dissolved by groundwater, a tiny, rocky relic of the planet's wetter eras. The doughnut's quiet elegance makes it a subtle standout among Mars' stranger finds. It doesn't demand alien theories or viral fame, yet it captures something profound about the planet: its ability to shape the mundane into the extraordinary. In a landscape often defined by barren emptiness, this unassuming ring reminds us that even the simplest forces, wind, time, and the patience of stone, can create wonders worthy of a cosmic bakery. Amid the dusty plains of Jazero crater, NASA, a Perseverance rover, stumbled upon an object so out of place it looked like something that had tumbled off a lumber truck, a bizarre, elongated rock resembling a weathered log. Stretching nearly half a meter long, its smooth, rounded edges and segmented texture made it a dead ringer for petrified wood, the kind you'd find fossilized in Earth's ancient riverbeds. For a moment, it was tempting to picture a Martian forest, its trees long turned to stone. But the truth, as always, was a testament to the red planet's talent for crafting illusions. This so-called Mars log isn't a relic of some lost ecosystem, it's a masterclass in wind erosion. On Earth, logs petrify when minerals seep into porous wood, replacing organic matter cell by cell over millennia. Mars, as far as we know, never had towering trees. Instead, the log's shape comes from the relentless sandblasting of Martian winds, which act like invisible sculptors. Over countless years, gusts have carved softer rock away, leaving behind this streamlined form. The segmented appearance, likely fractures from stress or temperature swings, accentuated by erosion. It's the same process that shapes yardangs, those wind-sculpted ridges found in deserts like Arizona's Painted Rock Canyon. Only here, the result is uncannily organic. What makes the log extraordinary isn't just its shape, but its isolation. Most wind-carved rocks on Mars cluster in groups, their forms blending into the landscape. This one stands alone, a singular oddity that begs the question, why here? Scientists suspect it might be a fragment of a larger formation, broken free and tumbled smooth by ancient floods or impacts before the wind took over. Its composition offers clues too. Early spectral analysis suggests basalt, a volcanic rock resistant enough to withstand erosion while the surrounding material crumbled. Yet the log's most fascinating feature is how it plays with scale. From Perseverance's vantage point, it looks substantial, almost hefty, but in reality, it's a testament to how Mars' thin atmosphere and low gravity allow for delicate structures to survive. On Earth, such a slender formation would collapse under its own weight or shatter in a storm. Here it endures, a fragile monument to patience. The irony isn't lost on scientists, a rock that mimics life so perfectly, yet owes its form to utterly lifeless forces. It's a reminder that Mars doesn't need biology to baffle us. Its geology alone is creative enough to craft shapes that blur the line between the familiar and the alien. And in that ambiguity lies the real magic, not in finding what we expect, but in discovering how effortlessly Mars defies it. The Martian landscape has served up its fair share of optical illusions, but few have been as charmingly absurd as the so-called Mars starfish. Nestled among the rocks of Gale Crater, this peculiar formation caught the eye of Curiosity's cameras in 2017. A 5-pointed, jagged-edged object that looked startlingly like a sea star washed up on a cosmic shore. With its symmetrical arms and slightly raised center, it seemed almost too perfect to be random. Social media buzzed with theories. Had Mars once harbored oceans teeming with life? Was this a fossilized relic of some ancient alien marine ecosystem? The reality, as always, lies in the artistry of erosion and the human mind's knack for spotting familiar shapes in the chaos of nature. What makes the starfish so captivating isn't just its shape, it's the context. Unlike the desolate plains around it, this rock stands out like a deliberate oddity. Its sharp, radiating fractures give it that distinctive silhouette, as if someone had pressed a cookie cutter into the Martian crust. Geologists point to a process called spalling, where layers of rock peel away under stress, often leaving behind angular, geometric patterns. On Earth, we see similar formations in dried mudflats or weathered sandstone, where tension cracks create star-like fissures. On Mars, where temperature swings can exceed 90 degrees Celsius in a single day, rocks expand and contract violently, splitting along lines of weakness. Over time, wind erosion exaggerates those fractures, sandblasting the edges into sharper relief. But the starfish's placement adds another layer of intrigue. It sits isolated, as if dropped onto the surface rather than emerging from it. Some scientists speculate it could be a fragment of a larger, more complex structure, perhaps a hardened crust from an ancient mudflat, shattered and scattered by impacts or wind. Others suggest it might be a ventifact, a rock sculpted by persistent winds carrying abrasive dust. Mars' thin atmosphere means particles aren't slowed as much as on Earth, allowing them to act like tiny chisels over millennia. The result, a rock that looks sculpted with intent, even though its form is purely the work of time and weather. The starfish also plays into a broader theme of Martian geology, its uncanny ability to mimic life. From the blueberries' organic clusters to the flower-like mineral deposits, Mars constantly teases us with shapes that feel biological. It's a reminder of how deeply our brains are wired to seek the familiar, a survival trait that turns barren landscapes into Rorschach tests. Yet, even as we dismiss the starfish as another case of pareidolia, its scientific value lingers. Those jagged edges record the planet's harsh climate history, and its isolation hints at the forces that redistribute debris across the surface. In the end, the Mars starfish is a cosmic inside joke, a rock that invites us to wonder, then teaches us to look deeper. It's not proof of ancient oceans or lost creatures, but it is proof of something equally profound, a planet that never runs out of ways to surprise us. And perhaps that's the real magic, not in finding what we expect, but in discovering how effortlessly Mars defies it. The Martian surface has served up plenty of bizarre formations, but few have looked quite as intentionally set as the so-called spoon and fork discovered near each other in Gale Crater. When Curiosity's cameras captured these rocks in 2015, the internet couldn't resist the cosmic table, setting one rock extended like a slender spoon handle, complete with a rounded tip, while another nearby formation bristled with jagged, tine-like protrusions straight out of a cutlery drawer. The resemblance was so uncanny, it was almost comical, as if some interstellar picnic had been interrupted mid-meal, leaving behind utensils frozen in the dust. But of course, Mars doesn't have diners, let alone silverware. These shapes are yet another triumph of pareidolia, the brain's habit of imposing familiar patterns on random forms. Just as we see animals in clouds or faces in mountain peaks, our minds latch onto objects that mirror everyday items, especially ones as universal as forks and spoons. What makes this pair so striking isn't just their individual shapes, but their proximity. Finding two utensil-like rocks side by side feels statistically mischievous, like the planet itself is winking at us. Geologically, the spoon is likely a ventifact, a wind-sculpted rock shaped by millennia of abrasive dust storms. Mars' thin atmosphere allows sand particles to whip across the surface at high speeds, acting like a natural sandblaster. Over time, softer rock erodes unevenly, leaving behind harder spines or curves. The spoon's graceful arc, probably a resistant mineral vein that outlasted the surrounding material. The fork, meanwhile, owes its pronged silhouette to fractures. As temperature swings cause rocks to expand and contract, stress cracks radiate outward, creating sharp, angular splits. Wind then undercuts the gaps, deepening the divides until they resemble cutlery tines. What's fascinating is how these processes mirror phenomena on Earth. In deserts like Egypt's White Desert, wind-carved pillars take on surreal shapes: chicken legs, mushrooms, even fairy towers. The difference: Mars' low gravity and lack of moisture let its formations grow more delicate. A rock spoon there can protrude farther without snapping, while a fork retains jagged edges that would crumble under Earth's heavier atmosphere. Yet the real lesson here isn't just about erosion, it's about expectation. Humans have a long history of projecting domesticity onto Mars. Victorian astronomers sketched canals they believed were built by civilizations. Early photos sparked theories of pyramids and statues. Today, we spot spoons. It's a reminder that exploration is as much about interpreting as it is about observing. Mars doesn't need civilizations to feel familiar. Its geology alone can conjure scenes from our kitchens. So while these rocks aren't proof of alien dinner parties, there's something just as valuable: a mirror. They show us how eagerly we search for reflections of ourselves in the unknown, even if all we find are stones shaped by the patient, indifferent hands of wind and time. And in that disconnect between what we see and what's really there, Mars delivers its quietest, cleverest punchline. Of all the bizarre rock formations spotted on Mars, few have triggered as many double takes as the so-called traffic light, a peculiar stack of three distinctly colored rocks that, when viewed from just the right angle, uncannily resembles an extraterrestrial stop-and-go signal. When Curiosity's Mastcam snapped this formation in 2014, the image quickly became a viral sensation, with social media users joking about Martian rush hour and interplanetary transportation departments. But behind the humor lies a fascinating lesson about how layering, erosion, and perspective conspire to turn ordinary geology into cosmic pranks. What makes this formation so eye-catching is its perfect vertical alignment. Three rounded rocks perch atop one another, dark at the base, lighter in the middle, and a reddish cap on top mirroring the classic red-yellow-green sequence of terrestrial traffic signals. The illusion is so convincing that it's hard not to imagine some ancient Martian civil engineer carefully assembling this beacon. In reality, it's a fluke of deposition and erosion. These rocks likely formed when sediment settled in layers billions of years ago, possibly in an ancient lake or riverbed. Over time, minerals like hematite or clays tinted each stratum different colors, while wind sculpted the edges into smooth, stackable shapes. Perspective plays the ultimate trick here. From Curiosity's vantage point, the rocks line up with near-perfect symmetry, but orbital images reveal they're actually scattered across a hillside. It's the two-dimensional view that flattens the scene, compressing distance to create the illusion of deliberate stacking. Earth has similar perspective illusions. Think of those tourist photos where people hold up the Leaning Tower of Pisa, but Mars amplifies the effect with its stark, shadowed terrain. Without trees or atmospheric haze to provide depth cues, objects at different distances can appear bizarrely connected. The traffic light also highlights how erosion exposes Mars' geological history like pages in a book. Each colored layer represents a different chapter in the planet's past, perhaps a volcanic eruption depositing dark basalt, followed by periods of water leaching minerals into lighter sediments. Wind then acts like a librarian, carefully peeling back the layers until only these isolated fragments remain. On Earth, such formations might be buried or weathered away, but Mars' gentle erosion preserves them like museum exhibits. What's most delightful about this formation isn't the science, it's the way it bridges the absurd and the profound. In one glance, it's a punchline about alien infrastructure. In the next, it's a testament to the patient forces that shape worlds. Mars doesn't need to engineer mysteries. Its natural processes are creative enough to keep us perpetually amused and astonished. And perhaps that's the real lesson of the traffic light, a reminder to pause, look twice, and appreciate how even the cosmos enjoys the occasional visual pun. Mars has a habit of serving up rocks that look eerily like relics of life, and few sparked as much instant folklore as the infamous thigh bone photographed by Curiosity in 2014. There, lying in the dust of Gale Crater, was a smooth, elongated rock with a bulbous end, its silhouette uncannily resembling a fossilized femur. The image went viral overnight, with excited speculators declaring it proof of ancient Martian megafauna, dinosaurs, giants, or other complex creatures that once roamed the red planet. But before we start reconstructing a Martian Jurassic Park, let's unpack why this bone is actually one of Mars' most persuasive illusions. The key to understanding this formation lies in the brutal efficiency of wind erosion. On a planet with no vegetation or flowing water to soften its touch, Martian gusts act like sandpaper, sculpting rocks into shapes that mimic organic curves. The femur likely started as a chunk of volcanic basalt or sandstone, its softer layers gradually worn away until only the most resistant protrusions remained, creating that distinctive rounded head and tapered shaft. Earth has similar wind-carved oddities in places like the Alabama hills of California, where rocks resemble crouching animals or frozen faces. But Mars, with its thinner atmosphere and relentless dust storms, takes this artistry to extremes, polishing stones into forms that feel almost intentional. What makes the thigh bone particularly convincing is its isolation. Most pareidolia-driven finds on Mars' faces, spoons, starfish, sit amid chaotic terrain, making their familiar shapes obvious flukes. This rock, though, lay alone in relatively flat dust, like a solitary bone bleached in the desert sun. That visual simplicity tricks our brains into ignoring the scale. The femur was barely the size of a soda can, and the absence of any other skeletal fragments nearby. On Earth, fossils rarely appear in solitude. They're typically found in groups or embedded in sediment that tells a broader biological story. Here, there's no context, just a lonely rock that happens to mirror something deeply ingrained in our hunter-gatherer instincts, the shape of prey. Scientists were quick to emphasize another critical point. Mars has never shown evidence of complex life, let alone organisms with bones. The planet's harsh radiation, lack of atmospheric oxygen, and scarcity of liquid water make vertebrate life astronomically unlikely. Even if microbes once existed, a possibility still under investigation, the leap from single-celled organisms to animals with skeletons would require evolutionary conditions far beyond anything Mars is known to have offered. The thigh bone's composition sealed the deal. Spectral analysis revealed it was pure mineral, with none of the phosphorus or calcium signatures that characterize terrestrial fossils. Yet the rock's legacy endures as a masterclass in how desperately we want Mars to reflect Earth. From Percival Lowell's 19th century canals to modern-day statues, we keep projecting our own biology onto this barren world. The thigh bone isn't just a geological quirk, it's a mirror showing how hard it is to accept that alien landscapes might be truly alien. And in that sense, it's as revealing as any fossil, not of Martian life but of human nature. Mars has toyed with our imaginations yet again, this time with a shadow so bizarre it could pass for a cosmic crustacean scuttling across the rocks. In 2015, NASA's Curiosity rover captured an image that set the internet ablaze, a dark, crab-like silhouette clinging to the cliffs of Mount Sharp. With what appeared to be segmented limbs, a rounded body, and even pincer-like protrusions, the Mars crab looked like something that had crawled straight out of a Martian tide pool. For a moment, it was tempting to picture underground aquifers teeming with alien arthropods. But as always, Mars had other plans. This was another masterclass in how light and geology can conspire to fool even the most discerning eyes. The crab's secret, a perfect storm of angles and erosion. The formation wasn't an object at all, but a shadow cast by a jagged rock overhang. As the sun dipped low in Mars' sky, its light grazed the cliff face at a shallow angle, stretching the rock's irregularities into elongated, organic-looking shapes on the ground below. The rover's camera happened to snap the shot when the shadows aligned just right, transforming mundane bumps and crevices into something resembling legs and claws. It's the same phenomenon that turns tree branches into witch fingers on Earth only here. The lack of atmospheric haze sharpened the illusion to eerie perfection. But why couldn't this actually be a crab? The answer lies in Mars' unforgiving reality. True crabs, or any complex aquatic life, require three things Mars sorely lacks: liquid water, a thick atmosphere, and an ecosystem to sustain them. While the planet once had flowing rivers and lakes billions of years ago, today's surface is drier than Earth's most barren deserts, with water existing only as ice or vapor. Even if subterranean brine pockets exist, they'd be far too salty and cold for Earth-like crustaceans. Mars' paper-thin atmosphere offers no protection from radiation, which would shred DNA-based life. And without plants or plankton to form a food chain, there's simply no energy source to fuel something as complex as a crab. The shadow's anatomy adds another layer of intrigue. What looked like segmented limbs were likely fractures in the overhang formed by eons of temperature swings. The pincers, probably wind-carved grooves in the cliff face, their edges catching the light just so. Even the body owed its shape to differential erosion, softer rock wearing away faster than harder layers, leaving behind contours that tricked our pattern-seeking brains. Similar formations can be found in Earth's deserts, where wind-sculpted hoodoos sometimes cast monstrous shadows at dusk. What makes the Mars crab special isn't its plausibility, but its persistence in our collective imagination. Long after scientists explained the shadow's origins, the crab lived on in memes and speculative art, a testament to how desperately we want Mars to feel alive. It's a reminder that exploration isn't just about data, it's about the stories we project onto the unknown. And in that sense, the crab is real not as biology, but as a symbol of the curiosity that drives us to keep looking, even when the answers turn out to be beautifully ordinary. Mars has a way of turning rocks into Rorschach tests, and few examples prove this better than the so-called alien skull, photographed by Curiosity in 2016. Nestled among the rubble of Gale Crater, this weathered formation stopped viewers in their tracks. Its hollow eye sockets, prominent nasal cavity, and even what looked like a jagged jawline gave it an eerie, almost humanoid resemblance. For conspiracy circles, it was instant evidence, proof of lost Martian civilizations, or even the remains of some unfortunate extraterrestrial explorer. But before we start drafting interplanetary obituaries, let's crack open this cosmic cold case with the tools of geology. What makes this rock so convincingly skull-like isn't its design, but its destruction. On Earth, we see similar illusions in places like Nebraska's gigantic skull or Egypt's Sphinx's head, natural formations where wind and rain carve weak points in stone, creating pits and grooves that mimic facial features. Mars achieves the same effect, just with a different sculptor. The planet's thin but persistent winds act like sandblasters, targeting fractures and softer mineral veins in rocks. Over millennia, this erodes cavities where weaknesses exist, leaving behind harder protrusions that resemble brows, cheekbones, or teeth. The skull is essentially a rock with impeccable timing. It just happened to erode in a way that tickled our primate brains into seeing a face. Scale plays a sneaky role here too. From Curiosity's vantage point, the object appeared roughly the size of a human skull, which primed us to make the connection. But zoom out and context changes everything. The rock sits amid a field of equally bizarre shapes, some with holes, others with ridges, all products of the same erosional forces. Isolated, the skull stands out. In its natural habitat, it's just another member of Mars' geological menagerie. Composition seals the deal against alien origins. Spectral analysis revealed the rock was basalt, a volcanic material common across Mars with no traces of organic compounds. Real skulls, whether human or hypothetical alien, would contain phosphorus, calcium, and proteins, none of which showed up in scans. And then there's the clincher, no other bones nearby. Fossils on Earth rarely appear solo. They cluster in patterns that hint at anatomy or behavior. This lone skull was a geological orphan, lacking any connective tissue to a larger biological narrative, yet its legacy lingers as a lesson in perception. The same neural wiring that once helped our ancestors spot predators in dim light now tricks us into seeing faces on barren worlds. Mars, with its stark landscapes and play of shadows, is the ultimate stage for these illusions. The skull isn't evidence of life, but it is evidence of how life, or at least the human mind, insists on finding itself reflected in the cosmos. And in that paradox lies the real mystery. Not whether Mars harbors aliens, but why we're so determined to put them there. Among Mars' countless oddities, few have fueled conspiracy theories like the so-called Mars UFO, a disc-shaped anomaly glinting in a rover image like a metallic saucer parked on the rust-colored plains. When this photo first surfaced online, UFO enthusiasts pounced. Here was undeniable proof of extraterrestrial visitors, a flying disc straight out of sci-fi lore, conveniently left in frame for humanity to discover. But before we draft intergalactic parking tickets, let's dissect why this UFO is actually one of Mars' most mundane yet fascinating illusions, the culprit. A speck of dust, not alien engineering, not secret NASA cover-ups, just a tiny particle that drifted onto the lens of Curiosity's mass cam. These specks are common in rover imagery, especially given Mars' ever-present dust storms. When sunlight hits them just right, they flare into perfect circles or ovals, their edges crisp enough to mimic manufactured objects. Earth photographers know this phenomenon well. Lens flares create similar artifacts in our own cameras, turning wayward raindrops or pollen into ethereal orbs. On Mars, where the thin atmosphere sharpens light contrasts, the effect is even more pronounced. What makes this particular speck so convincing is its placement. Suspended against the barren horizon, it appears to hover above the ground, its shadowless form giving it an unnatural, placed quality. The human brain, wired to detect anomalies, flags this as significant. Why would a lone disk just sit there unless it was artificial? But zoom in and the truth unravels. The object lacks texture, depth, or any interaction with the environment. Real metallic debris, say from a rover's descent stage, would show weathering, cast shadows, or exhibit angular edges. This was just a smudge on the cosmic windshield. The Mars UFO taps into a deeper pattern of celestial pareidolia. From the moon's floating cube to Venus' giant city lights, we're primed to misinterpret space phenomena through the lens of pop culture. Mars, with its alien yet familiar landscapes, becomes a Rorschach test for our fascination with visitors from the stars. Even NASA, a meticulous explanation, struggle to compete with the allure of a good mystery. Why wouldn't a planet named after the god of war host interplanetary dogfights? Yet this spec's legacy isn't just about debunking myths. It underscores how perception shapes exploration. Every rover image is a puzzle, and while most pieces fit into geological frameworks, some dangle temptingly outside. The UFO reminds us that Mars, for all its barrenness, is still a stage where light and dust perform magic tricks, and humanity, ever the eager audience, keeps falling for the act. Mars never runs out of ways to make us question reality, and the so-called pyramid nestled in Gale crater is a prime example. When Curiosity's cameras first spotted this angular, near-perfect formation in 2015, it seemed to defy geology itself. With its crisp edges and symmetrical sides, the rock looked like a scaled-down version of Egypt's Great Pyramid, as if some ancient architect had left behind a calling card in the Martian dust. For a moment, it was tempting to imagine lost civilizations or interstellar connections, but the truth, as always, lies in the patient, invisible hands of erosion and time. What makes this pyramid so striking isn't its artificial appearance, but how effortlessly nature crafted it. On Earth, we see similar geometric marvels, from the hexagonal basalt columns of Iceland's Jazero to Utah's sandstone spires, all shaped by wind, water, and temperature swings. Mars achieves the same feats, just with different tools. The pyramid's shape likely began as a block of volcanic rock, fractured by stress into sharp planes. Over eons, wind-blown sand acted like a celestial sandblaster, wearing away softer material while leaving harder angles intact. The result, a natural sculpture so precise it feels intentional. Comparing it to Earth's pyramids reveals the stark differences between human engineering and geological chance. The Great Pyramid of Giza, for instance, required millions of precisely cut limestone blocks, aligned to celestial markers with mathematical precision. Mars' version, though visually similar, lacks all the hallmarks of design. No consistent measurements, no aligned corridors, no tools or quarries nearby. It's a solo act, not part of any larger complex. Scale is another giveaway. This pyramid stands barely taller than a car tire, dwarfed by even the smallest terrestrial monuments. Yet the formation's real magic lies in what it tells us about Mars' erosional forces. The planet's thin atmosphere allows wind to sculpt with unusual delicacy, creating sharper edges and flatter facets than Earth's thicker air would permit. The pyramid's pristine geometry hints at the uniformity of the original rock, possibly a lava flow or hardened sediment with minimal internal flaws. Every clean line is a record of how that material resisted the elements, a testament to the planet's ability to shape chaos into order without a single guiding hand. For all its grandeur, the pyramid also serves as a cautionary tale about perspective. From certain angles, it's undeniably pyramid-like. Shift the viewpoint slightly, and it dissolves into an ordinary outcrop. This illusion thrives because human vision prioritizes symmetry, a survival trait that helped our ancestors spot predators hiding in brush. On Mars, that same instinct misfires, turning random fractures into artifacts. It's a reminder that the red planet doesn't need aliens to amaze us. Its natural artistry is strange enough, crafting wonders that feel just familiar enough to haunt our imaginations, and just alien enough to keep us questioning. Among Mars' gallery of uncanny formations, few have sparked as much whimsical fascination as the so-called Mars statue, a tiny, weathered rock that, when photographed by Opportunity in 2010, looked eerily like a miniature figurine. Nicknamed the Martian Queen by enthusiasts, this peculiar formation stood just a few centimeters tall, yet its silhouette suggested a robed figure with a slender neck, a rounded head, and even what appeared to be delicate arms folded regally against its body. For a moment, it was tempting to imagine an ancient Martian artisan carving a tribute to some long-lost ruler. But as with so many of Mars' illusions, the truth is a testament to the artistry of wind, time, and the human mind's relentless hunt for meaning. What makes this formation so compelling isn't its size, but its posture. Unlike most wind-carved rocks that appear abstract or jagged, this one seemed to mimic human proportions, almost as if it were caught mid-pose. Geologists point to a process called differential erosion, where softer rock wears away faster than harder layers, leaving behind unexpected contours. On Earth, we see similar effects in places like Arizona's Wave, where sandstone curves into undulating shapes. But Mars, with its thinner atmosphere and relentless dust storms, sharpens these formations into uncanny precision. The Martian Queen likely started as a nondescript pebble, its softer minerals gradually sandblasted away until only the most resistant fragments remained, accidentally sculpting something that tickles our instinct for recognizing human forms. Perspective played its usual tricks here too. The rock's shadow, cast at just the right angle, accentuated its figurine-like silhouette, deepening the illusion of a crafted statue. From another viewpoint or under different lighting, it might have looked like any other lump of Martian rubble, but caught in that fleeting moment, it became a Rorschach test for our imagination. Social media erupted with playful comparisons. Some saw a kneeling woman, others a robed priestess, and a few even joked about a tiny alien waving hello. The science, of course, is less fanciful. Spectral analysis confirmed the rock was basaltic, with no traces of tool marks or artificial shaping. Its features were simply the result of fractures and erosion aligning in a way that resonated with our brain's hardwired obsession with human-like shapes. Yet the Martian Queen holds a deeper lesson about exploration. It's not just a rock, it's a mirror reflecting our hopes. For centuries, we've projected our myths onto Mars, from Percival Lowell's canals to modern-day doorways. This tiny formation taps into that same longing, the desire to find not just water or microbes, but kinship. In its silent, stony guise, it asks us why we're so desperate to see ourselves in the cosmos. Maybe it's because loneliness is the last frontier even rovers can't conquer. The real magic of the statue lies in its fragility. Unlike Earth's ancient monuments, which were built to endure, this formation is temporary. A single dust storm could erode it beyond recognition, leaving no trace of its brief reign as the internet's favorite Martian monarch. That fleeting nature makes it a poetic metaphor for discovery itself, a reminder that wonder, like wind-shaped rocks, is both precious and impermanent. And perhaps that's the most alien truth of all. On Mars, even the illusions have expiration dates. Of all the fleeting mysteries captured by Curiosity's cameras, few burned as briefly and brightly as the so-called Mars Light Beacon, a dazzling, unexplained gleam that appeared to shoot straight up from the planet's horizon like a spotlight piercing the dusty sky. In 2014, the rover's right mastcom snapped an image that sent conspiracy theorists into overdrive. There, in the distance, a pinprick of light seemed to hover above the surface, its glow stark against the muted Martian palette. Was this evidence of underground bases, alien signaling devices, or just another cosmic prank played by the universe? The truth lies in the cold mechanics of interplanetary photography. Scientists quickly identified the anomaly as a lens flare, an optical artifact caused by sunlight bouncing around inside the camera's housing. On Earth, we see these all the time, those hexagonal bursts or orbs that appear when shooting toward the sun. But Mars' thin atmosphere and relentless dust create ideal conditions for exaggerated flares. The beacon was likely sunlight reflecting off a tiny scratch or speck on the lens, amplified by the camera's exposure settings. Curiosity's mastcam, designed for geological close-ups, isn't optimized for filtering out such artifacts, especially when aimed toward the horizon where scattered light runs rampant. But there's another, even more mundane explanation: cosmic rays. These high-energy particles, zipping through space at nearly the speed of light, constantly bombard Mars' surface. When one strikes a camera sensor head-on, it can leave behind a bright pixel or streak, a digital sneeze that looks eerily artificial. Rovers capture these all the time. Most get filtered out by NASA image processors, but occasionally one slips through, masquerading as something extraordinary. The beacon fits the profile perfectly, a single, bright dot with no atmospheric distortion or shadow, appearing in just one frame before vanishing like a cosmic will-o'-the-wisp. What makes this glimmer so compelling isn't its origin, but its timing. The photo was taken near the Kimberley Rock Formation, a site already rich in geological intrigue. To the untrained eye, it seemed too convenient, a light appearing just as curiosity explored an area that might have once been hospitable to life. Yet science thrives on Occam's razor. The simplest explanation is usually correct. No controlled light source on Mars could beam so narrowly without scattering in the atmosphere, nor would it leave no trace in subsequent images. The beacon's ephemeral nature, here one moment, gone the next, is the hallmark of a transient artifact, not a persistent phenomenon. Still, the illusion taps into something deeper than optics. Humanity has a long history of projecting its fears and hopes onto unexplained lights in the sky, from will-o'-the-wisps in medieval swamps to modern UFO sightings. Mars, with its alien yet familiar landscapes, becomes the perfect canvas for these stories. The beacon's brief flicker reminds us how eagerly we'll chase even the faintest glimmer of mystery, especially when it shines from a world that refuses to give up all its secrets. In the end, this tiny flare is a lesson in how exploration blends cold data with hot imagination. For a fraction of a second, it turned a routine image into a Rorschach test, a spark that said less about Mars and more about us. Because sometimes the brightest mysteries aren't out there in the dust, they're in the way we choose to see them. Beneath the stark, windswept plains of Mars lies a network of winding, tube-like structures that look almost too perfect to be natural, stretching like the veins of some colossal subterranean beast. These so-called Mars tunnels, first spotted in high-resolution images from orbit, have fueled endless speculation. Could they be remnants of ancient lava flows, or something far more tantalizing, hidden passageways carved by an advanced civilization seeking shelter from the planet's harsh surface? The truth, as often is the case, is both more ordinary and scientifically thrilling. These tunnels are almost certainly lava tubes, hollow conduits formed when molten rock once coursed beneath Mars' surface. On Earth, we find similar structures in places like Hawaii's Kazumura Cave or Lava Beds National Monument, where rivers of basalt erupted, then drained away, leaving behind cavernous tunnels as the outer layers cooled into solid rock. Mars, with its history of massive volcanic activity, has simply preserved these features on a grander scale. Some of these tubes stretch for hundreds of kilometers, their ceilings partially collapsed in places, creating what scientists call skylights, gaps that offer a glimpse into the shadowy corridors below. What makes these formations so intriguing isn't just their origin, but their potential. Lava tubes are nature's perfect radiation shelters, with thick rock roofs that could protect future astronauts or, hypothetically, past microbial life from cosmic rays and solar flares. That's where the wilder theories take root. Could these tunnels have once harbored subterranean ecosystems or even served as refuges for ancient Martians? The idea isn't entirely science fiction. On Earth, life thrives in similarly hostile environments, from volcanic vents to deep caves. But Mars tunnels show no signs of artificial modification, no tool marks, no supporting pillars, no debris that would hint at habitation. Their smooth walls and uniform dimensions are entirely consistent with volcanic processes, not construction. Yet the allure persists thanks to their eerie resemblance to infrastructure. Some tubes appear to run unnervingly straight, while others branch like subway lines, their geometry triggering our instinct to see design in randomness. High-resolution scans reveal their floors are often littered with rubble from partial collapses, not smoothed or reinforced as you'd expect in engineered passageways. Even their skylights, which some UFO enthusiasts claim are artificial entrances, are simply the result of ceiling sections giving way over millennia under Mars' weak gravity. The real magic of these tunnels lies not in imagined cities, but in their silent testimony to Mars' fiery past. They are frozen relics of a time when the planet pulsed with geologic activity, when lava might have flowed like water beneath its crust. Today, they stand as tantalizing targets for exploration, not for alien artifacts, but for clues about Mars' volcanic history and, just maybe, the faintest traces of ancient sheltered life. Because sometimes the most profound mysteries aren't about what we wish to find, but what the rocks themselves are patiently waiting to tell us. Among Mars' collection of uncanny formations, few objects stop you in your tracks like the so-called Mars disk, a flat, circular rock that looks like someone accidentally dropped a DVD on the red planet's surface. Captured by Curiosity in 2016, this bizarrely smooth, near-perfect disk sat alone in the dust of Gale Crater, its edges so unnervingly precise that it seemed impossible to be natural. For a brief moment, it was tempting to imagine lost Martian technology or even an ancient record of some kind, waiting to be played back across the millennia. But as usual, Mars had a geological explanation up its sleeve, one that reveals just how creative erosion can be when given enough time. The disk's secret lies in its isolation. Unlike the scattered rubble around it, this rock appeared almost polished, as if deliberately placed. Scientists quickly pinpointed its likely origin, a classic case of ventifact formation. Ventifacts are rocks shaped by wind-blown sand, which acts like nature's sandpaper over eons. On Earth, we see them in deserts like the Atacama or Namibia, where gusts carve stones into bizarre, faceted shapes. But Mars, with its thinner atmosphere and relentless dust storms, takes this process to extremes. The disk probably started as a chunk of basalt or another hard mineral. Its softer layers gradually sanded away until only this resistant, flattened core remained. What's fascinating is how uniform the erosion was, suggesting the wind hit it from consistent directions over millennia, smoothing it into that eerie, manufactured-looking roundness. The disk's loneliness adds another layer of intrigue. Most ventifacts cluster in groups, their shapes echoing the prevailing winds. This one, though, sat solo, almost like a coin tossed onto a sidewalk. That isolation fueled wilder theories. Could it have tumbled from some higher stratum or been ejected by a distant impact? But orbital images showed no nearby cliffs or craters to explain its presence. The more plausible answer: it's a survivor. The surrounding softer rocks may have eroded completely, leaving this one resilient oddity behind, like the last tooth in a worn-down comb. What makes the disk truly mesmerizing isn't just its shape, but its sheen. Unlike Earth's ventifacts, which weather under rain and humidity, Mars' dry, static environment preserves polished surfaces almost indefinitely. The disk's reflective edge might even be the result of microscopic mineral alignments, a natural gloss created by wind-blown particles buffing it to a faint shine. It's the kind of detail that makes you wonder, If we could pick it up, would it feel as smooth as it looks? But perhaps the disk's greatest lesson is about perspective. From one angle, it's a geological fluke; from another, a fleeting mirage of something more. It's a reminder that Mars doesn't need aliens to feel alien. Its natural processes are strange enough to keep us guessing. And in that thin, dusty air, even a lonely rock can become a mirror, reflecting our endless desire to find the extraordinary in the ordinary. Mars isn't just a planet, it's a master of shadow puppetry. Case in point, the infamous Mars handgun, a rock formation that cast a silhouette so eerily pistol-like it looked like the red planet was packing heat. When Curiosity's cameras captured this peculiar shadow in 2022, the internet couldn't resist. Had some intergalactic cowboy left behind their sidearm? Was Mars staging its own cosmic Wild West showdown? The truth, as always, is a brilliant reminder of how light, perspective, and a dash of pareidolia can turn ordinary geology into interstellar theater. The handgun is really just a jagged rock jutting out at the perfect angle to mimic a revolver's profile. Low sunlight streaming across the Martian horizon stretched its shadow dramatically, transforming an unremarkable outcrop into what appeared to be a sleek, sci-fi blaster complete with a barrel and trigger guard. It's the same optical trick that turns tree branches into witch fingers or clouds into dragons only here. The stage is an alien desert and the director is pure chance. What makes this illusion so convincing isn't the rock itself, but the stark, high-contrast lighting of Mars' thin atmosphere, which sharpens shadows into knife-edged silhouettes. Scientifically, the explanation is straightforward. The rock's shape, likely a shard of volcanic basalt, was fractured by eons of temperature swings, leaving behind angular protrusions. Wind erosion then sanded down the edges just enough to create those uncannily smooth curves, but the real magic happened when the sun hit it just right. From Curiosity's vantage point, the shadow's proportions aligned flawlessly with a classic firearm, down to the subtle indentation where a grip would be. Rotate the camera a few degrees or change the time of day, and the illusion vanishes, proof that Mars' greatest special effect is fleeting perspective. Of course, no Martian mystery escapes wild speculation. Some theorists doubled down, insisting the rock was too perfectly shaped to be natural, hinting at everything from lost astronaut artifacts to alien armories. But scale tells the real story. The gun was barely the size of a dinner plate, hardly practical for any hypothetical sharpshooter. And let's not forget, manufacturing a metal firearm requires smelting, precision tools, and industrial infrastructure. Mars' surface is littered with oxidized iron, not steel alloys, and the only factories there are the ones we've imagined. The handgun's charm lies in its absurdity. Unlike the face on Mars or the doorway, which sparked serious debate, this was a moment of cosmic whimsy, a rock that made us laugh even as it teased our pattern-seeking brains. It's a reminder that exploration isn't just about monumental discoveries. Sometimes it's about the joy of stumbling upon a planet that moonlights as a stand-up comedian. And if Mars can make us see six-shooters in stone shadows, who knows what other imaginary duels are waiting in the dust? Mars has a way of turning even the most mundane geology into something that feels deliberately designed, and the so-called Mars staircase is a perfect example. When Curiosity's cameras caught these step-like formations carved into the cliffs of Mount Sharp, it was hard not to imagine some ancient civilization carving their way up the Martian hillside. The layers jutted out with uncanny regularity, like a grand staircase leading to nowhere, each step polished smooth by eons of wind. For a moment, it was tempting to picture Martian pilgrims ascending these terraces in some long-forgotten ritual. But the real story behind these formations is a masterclass in how sedimentary rock tells the slow, patient tale of a planet's history. These staircases aren't architectural relics, they're the work of deposition and erosion, nature's own stonemason. Billions of years ago, when Mars was a wetter world, layers of sediment settled at the bottom of ancient lakes or rivers. Over time, these layers hardened into rock, each one a snapshot of the planet's changing environment. Some strata might be fine-grained mud from calm waters, while others are coarse sand from rushing floods. Fast forward to today, and Mars' thin, abrasive winds have sandblasted away the softer layers, leaving the more resistant ones to protrude like steps on a colossal staircase. It's the same process that creates the terraced cliffs of Earth's Grand Canyon, only with a Martian twist: less water, more wind, and a patience measured in geological epochs. What makes these formations so mesmerizing is their precision. The steps aren't random, they follow the rhythm of Mars' ancient climate cycles. Each layer corresponds to a chapter in the planet's history: drier periods leaving behind dusty deposits, wetter ones depositing thicker, more resilient bands. Scientists can even trace chemical signatures in these layers, like reading lines in a diary. Iron-rich steps hint at oxidation, suggesting fleeting encounters with water or oxygen. Lighter streaks might mark volcanic ash falls, frozen in time between sedimentary pages. The staircase isn't just a rock formation, it's a timeline waiting to be climbed by researchers armed with spectral scanners and rock drills. Yet the allure of alien handiwork persists, and it's easy to see why. The steps' uniformity feels intentional, their edges crisp enough to suggest chisels rather than chance. But nature doesn't need tools to create order. On Earth, we see similar engineering in places like the Giant's Causeway, where cooling lava fractures into perfect hexagons, or in Utah's White Cliffs, where erosion carves balconies and alcoves without a single blueprint. Mars, with its quieter tectonic activity and relentless winds, simply takes this artistry further. The absence of Earth's messy vegetation and erosion makes the patterns pop, like a sculpture displayed in a sterile gallery. The real magic of the Mars staircase isn't in its resemblance to something human, it's in what it reveals about the planet's hidden rhythms. These steps aren't a path to alien ruins, but they are a path to understanding. Every layer is a clue to Mars' past habitability, a breadcrumb leading back to the days when water shaped this world as surely as it shapes ours. And in that way, the staircase is even more remarkable than any ancient architecture. It's a monument built not by hands but by time itself, a ladder of stone reaching across billions of years, inviting us to climb. Just when we thought the face on Mars had been laid to rest, the red planet decided to resurrect the mystery, this time with an even stranger visage staring back at us from the rocks. In 2022, NASA Perseverance rover spotted a formation that sent the internet into déjà vu, another eerie face, this one carved not into a sprawling mesa but into the jagged cliffs of Jazero crater. With hollow eyes, a pronounced nose, and even what looked like a twisted mouth, this new face bore an unsettling resemblance to a screaming figure frozen in stone. The parallels to the 1976 Cydonia face were impossible to ignore, but the key difference this time: technology had given us the tools to see it for what it really was. The original face on Mars became legendary because Viking 1's cameras were primitive by today's standards, pixelated and blurry, leaving just enough ambiguity for imagination to run wild. Perseverance's Mastcam Z, on the other hand, delivers images so crisp they leave almost nothing to interpretation. Zooming in on the 2022 formation revealed the truth in razor-sharp detail. No symmetrical features, no calculated proportions. Just a chaotic cluster of boulders and shadows that, from one specific angle, briefly aligned into something vaguely humanoid. The eyes were uneven pits where rocks had tumbled away. The mouth was a jagged crack running through weathered sediment. Even the nose crumbled under scrutiny, a random protrusion with no anatomical logic. It was pareidolia in high definition, proving that even with state-of-the-art cameras, Mars still knows how to mess with our minds. What makes this second face fascinating isn't just its existence, but how it underscores the power of perspective. The 1976 face spanned nearly 2 miles, requiring orbital distances to see the illusion at all. This new one was tiny, no larger than a refrigerator, yet it triggered the same psychological response. It's proof that our brain's facial recognition software doesn't care about scale. Whether it's a mountain or a pebble, if shadows align in the right way, we'll see a face staring back. Scientists call this the face detector circuit, a quirk of evolution that helped our ancestors spot predators in dim light, but now turns every Martian hillside into a potential mask. The real lesson here lies in the contrast between these two faces, separated by nearly 50 years of technological progress. Where Vikings' grainy photo left room for conspiracy, Perseverance's ultra-clear imagery slams the door shut, yet people still see intentionality in the rocks. That persistence reveals something profound about human nature. Our desire to find meaning in randomness isn't a bug, it's a feature. Mars, with its stark landscapes and play of light, will always be the ultimate Rorschach test, reflecting back whatever we're primed to see, whether it's gods, monsters, or screaming stone sentinels. But beyond the psychology, these faces also highlight how much we've learned. The original face became a cultural icon because we knew so little about Mars in the 70s. Today, with rovers crawling its surface and orbiters mapping every inch, we understand the planet's geology well enough to debunk illusions almost instantly. Yet that familiarity hasn't stripped Mars of its magic. If anything, it's deepened the wonder. Because now, when we see a face in the cliffs, we're not fooled into thinking it's artificial, but we are reminded of how creatively nature sculpts when given billions of years and a barren canvas. The screaming face of Jazero isn't proof of aliens. It's proof that reality, when viewed through the lens of time and erosion, can be just as strange as fiction. Mars has saved one of its most theatrical oddities for last, a towering, rectangular slab of rock so perfectly proportioned, it could pass for a monolith straight out of 2001, A Space Odyssey. Perched on the edge of a crater like some ancient cosmic mile marker, this stark formation stops you mid-scroll. With its razor-straight edges and flat faces, it seems almost too precise, too geometric to be natural. The moment NASA, a high-rise orbiter, spotted it in 2012, the parallels were inevitable. Here was Mars' own version of Kubrick's enigmatic alien artifact, silently daring us to unravel its origins. But peel back the sci-fi glamour, and the truth is just as compelling. The monolith isn't some alien skyscraper, it's a masterclass in fracture mechanics. On Earth, we see similar formations in places like the Devil's Tower in Wyoming or the basalt columns of Iceland, where cooling lava contracts into angular cracks. Mars' version likely formed the same way, only with a twist. The rock is probably a remnant of a much larger outcrop, its sides sheared clean by eons of thermal stress. As temperatures swing wildly between day and night, sometimes over 90 degrees in a single sol, rocks expand and contract until they split along their weakest planes. Wind erosion then polishes the fractures into those unnervingly smooth faces, leaving behind a solitary sentinel that looks deliberately placed. What makes this monolith so mesmerizing isn't just its shape, but its isolation. Most angular rocks on Mars sit in clusters, their fractures echoing the chaos of their birth. This one stands alone, a stark silhouette against the dust. That solitude fuels conspiracy theories, of course. Some claim it's a marker left by ancient visitors, while others insist it's a structural ruin from a lost civilization. But scale betrays the fantasy. Towering roughly 15 feet tall, it's dwarfed by terrestrial monuments like Stonehenge or the pyramids. And unlike those engineered wonders, the monolith lacks any tool marks, symmetry, or context. No roads leading to it, no debris suggesting construction. It's a geological hermit, not a relic. Yet the monolith's real magic lies in what it reveals about Martian geology. Its sharp angles suggest the original rock was exceptionally uniform in composition, allowing fractures to propagate cleanly. The lack of debris around it hints at a slow, patient erosion process, where wind whisked away the softer material grain by grain over millions of years. Even its shadow tells a story stretching long and precise across the crater floor, a sundial with no one to read it. In the end, this formation is a mirror. It reflects our hunger for cosmic mystery, our knack for seeing design in randomness, but it also reflects Mars' quiet genius for turning erosion into art. The monolith isn't a message from aliens, it's a testament to time's ability to carve elegance from chaos. And perhaps that's the most alien truth of all, that a barren world, given enough millennia, can sculpt something so perfect it feels like a whisper from the universe itself. From the haunting face on Mars to the uncanny traffic light rock, we've journeyed through 30 of the red planet's most mind-bending mysteries, each one a testament to how effortlessly Mars blurs the line between the familiar and the alien. Some, like the hematite blueberries or the Medusae Fossae dragon scales, are stunning examples of nature's patience, sculpted by wind, water, and time into shapes that feel almost intentional. Others, like the floating spoon or the thigh bone rock, play tricks on our eyes, proving how eagerly our brains impose meaning on randomness. And then there are the fleeting illusions, the stick figure shadow, the crab-like silhouette, reminding us that Mars doesn't need aliens to feel alive. Its geology alone is creative enough to keep us guessing. What unites these discoveries isn't just their strangeness, but what they reveal about our own curiosity. Science has explained most of them wind-carved ventifacts, stress fractures, camera artifacts, yet the wonder lingers. Because even when we know the how, there's still the why that tugs at our imagination. Why does Mars craft formations so unnervingly Earth-like? Why do its shadows conspire to mimic life? The answers aren't just about mineralogy or erosion. They're about the stories we tell ourselves to bridge the cosmic distance between worlds. So here's the real takeaway. Mars isn't just a planet. It's a mirror. Every face we see in its cliffs, every spoon-shaped rock, reflects our longing to find kinship in the cosmos. And that's where the true magic lies, not in proving these oddities are alien, but in realizing they don't need to be. The universe is strange enough on its own. If these mysteries lit up your curiosity like a Martian dust devil, hit subscribe. We're just scratching the surface of space's weirdest wonders. And drop a comment below which Martian oddity left you staring at the screen, half convinced there's more to the story: the face, the doorway, the cannonball rock. Whatever it is, keep questioning, keep imagining, and above all, keep looking up. Because out there, in the rust-colored silence of Mars, the next great cosmic riddle is waiting. And who knows, maybe the next time we look, we'll finally see something even science can't explain.